Hey, Roman. So
How you
great to
doing?
see you. I'm so
Same,
glad
same.
that I'm getting a chance to reconnect with you and interview you for my students to learn from you on your academic and your career path.
Hopefully, hopefully.
They will, Roman. And okay, so I'll just start off with some questions and then we'll just take it from there. Good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So, where did you grow up? What high school did you go to? And what made you end up at Cabrillo? And I know you have a path between high school and Cabrillo. So why don't you start from there?
Sure, sure. Well, you know, uh, I started at Aptos High, and I ended up graduating from a small charter school, Pacific Collegiate, when they were over on the west side. I don't know if they're still around, but sort of just a theme in my whole education. Just kind of bounced around and finished any sort of degree whichever way I could, right? So yeah, a couple different high schools, ended up finishing on the west side, and that was one of those things where I was working a lot. So I ended up working on the west side, so it was just easier for me to go to school over there and finish. I hate to say this, but we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Is the school was sort of always a means to an end, right? It's sort of secondary to what I was doing in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So where were you working while you were going to high school?
yeah. So I was actually working at a couple different places. I was working as basically like an apprentice welder. I was working at RCR over on Entinal Street.
Okay.
No longer there, but I believe one of the guys, the guy who owns the shop, actually was a professor down in the welding technology cluster down across the street at the time. So that's that's kind of how that started. And then I was at Mercury Metals in Watsonville for a little bit, also doing some welding and fabrication stuff.
So
So
were you working part-time while you're going to high school? I guess part-time while you're going to high school.
yeah, so it was part time, and I had a little bit of an adjusted schedule. And one of the things about you know um, Pacific Collegiate was they were very loose with how your schedule works. Of course, there's laws and everything, labor laws and all that stuff that dictate how many hours a week you can work. But basically the deal was there is if you were able to finish your coursework, you could have the time, the rest of the
Mhm.
time to do what you want, as long as you remain in good standing. So that
Yeah.
was helpful for me,
Yeah.
certainly.
I think the high school you went to was Pacific Charter, Pacific Coast Charter, because Pacific Collegiate is that school that requires like so many classes.
Sure, I don't know, something. It
Yeah.
was a
It was
very
more of
AP
a
heavy
homeschool kind of thing, right?
kind of. Yeah, yeah, and it
Yeah.
was
Okay. It
it
was Pacific Coast Charter.
okay. So
Got it.
that
Because
shows you how long
Pacific
it's been.
Collegiate had no flexibility.
Yeah, no, no. So that yeah, very good. But it was I'm told it was a great school for transferring into whether it's community college or straight into a 4 year, and that worked out well, and a lot of people went on from there to be at Stanford and Berkeley and all
Mm,
that kind of fun stuff. So it was good. It was
yeah.
good. I really wasn't there for the school, but it
Right.
got me through and set me up for what I needed to be doing. So worked out for me.
Okay. So when you graduated high school with all this experience, then what did you decided at some point to come to Cabrillo, and what made you decide
Sure.
that?
Well, so the big thing with Cabrillo was at the time there was a program in the welding technology, sort of like a whatever that certification, or I'm not sure what it is now. I think you guys still offer something in the welding technology, either
Yes.
enhanced or whatever. But at the time, uh, you were still able to become a certified, an AWS certified welder out of that shop, which I don't know if that's still the
It
case.
it is.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
But
and in fact, let me just cut in. In
yeah,
fact, Cabrillo hired a full-time welding instructor. So
Oh,
now there's
wonderful.
someone completely running the program and it's not, piecemeal. It's
It
great.
was very piecemeal at the time. Ollie Americapon was the instructor that I had. Great guy. I think he's back in Poland now. At least that was his plan at the time. But yeah, so the what brought me to Cabrillo was I'd been welding for some time, and just kind of making a go of it. And in order to make more money, uh, I decided to go get my cert, and I was looking around, as one does, in the hometown there, what's available, what's not, and I found Cabrillo's welding technology program. I went sort of, an abbreviated welding technology journey because, of course, I already had some experience. And so I signed up for the classes that I need to sign up for just to be enrolled, and then took my tests, and I certified in back then it was it's the test is still 6G pipe, but basically a pipe welding test that covered basically 4-inch pipe on down to 2-inch, right, steam line, stuff like that. And it was a couple different processes, so you could take that certification and apply it to a lot of different jobs. You take the hardest certification so that it's applicable to as many scenarios as possible, so that when you go out there with your cert, you're able to apply that to many different industries, right? And this pipe one is a lot of use in gas, refinery, stuff like that, stuff where the
Okay.
big money was. So I was just kind of chasing the money, and that's what brought me to Cabrillo. And then, of course, having gone through that, um, you know, I was looking at, it'd been a few years. What's the next step? I was very interested in fabrication, and my grandfather had worked for Granite for his entire life. My uncle, Granite Construction, down there in Watsonville, for a long time, and my dad was a journeyman mechanic, and so I was kind of just falling into the you know footsteps there, so to speak. But I, being a young kid, wanted a little more. And so I was looking for, something to do after that, that kind of rolled everything that I was good at, into something that was higher paying and potentially more rewarding. So a lot of those jobs can get pretty monotonous. You're welding the same thing over and over and over. You're building the same thing over and over and over, day in, day out. And so, I found the mechanical engineering program. It's AS for transfer there, of course, with you and Karen at the helm. And I just kind of poked my head in, I think, to the transfer center, and asked what I needed to do. And uh, the woman behind the counter is like, well, you could just pretty much pay the $36 a credit. I don't know what it is now, and show up. So that's what I did. I think that was like the following summer, after I'd graduated. I applied the month that I graduated high school at Cabrillo, and then the next semester, I was in the mechanical engineering program. Well, what do you say? You let me in the class, right? I don't know if I was in, but I was a warm body in a seat, at that point. And then the rest is history. Kind of went through that, and kept going, and then it kind of just spiraled out from there.
Yeah.
Finished up at San
Okay.
Jose State.
So from Cabrillo, then you decided where to transfer to. And I know you went to San Jose State, and I'm thinking that it's because it was close. You were
Sure.
still working while you were going to
Yes.
Cabrillo.
Yes.
Could you
So I
talk
was.
about that? Where were you still working at the same companies
Yep.
while you were going through the engineering
Yeah. So
program?
there was a transition there. So I had been working at two shops, and I ended up leaving Mercury Metals, and I stayed at RCR. Um, and that was great. And I was able to kind of focus a little bit more on some of the more specialty welding. So the TIG process, non-ferrous stuff, aluminum, stainless,
Hmm.
um, the kind of what people around here consider exotics, and because he did a little bit more of that work, and so
Okay.
that was kind of the direction I wanted to take that, and so I worked there, all through pretty much all through the first year, um, and then I rolled over to granite construction towards the end, towards the end of my time at Cabrillo, and that was the year escapes me, but that was like probably the last couple semesters I was at Granite Construction, and I started there as an intern, right? So RCR kind of was paying the bills, I was bartending, busboying a couple nights a week, just kind of trying to put it together, and finish school. My grades weren't stellar, certainly, but I had a pretty good work ethic, because I'd been doing it for so long, and that was pretty attractive to most employers. And I think some of my professors were kind of mad at me because I was I was usually kind of halfway in, halfway out
Mm.
during class, right? But as is the case with a lot of folks at community college, we got other stuff to do,
Right.
other
Yeah,
stuff to
yeah,
take care of. So
yeah,
yeah, went into Granite as an intern, and that was for project engineer role. And they started probably around 25 bucks an hour. They're probably doing little better now, but that was pretty good for an internship. A lot of
yeah,
internships weren't paid, and it was what I thought at the time a great way to get into, again, another step up from just working the line, so to speak. And then once I had the transfer degree done, that was kind of enough to fake it till you make it, sort of situation. Susan Rose, who I don't think is there anymore, wonderful, wonderful woman who was running HR for them. Anyway, um,
oh,
she
at Granite, you
at
mean?
Granite, at
Oh,
Granite.
okay, yeah, 'cause okay.
Yeah, yeah. She was she kind of helped me, like, kind of fudge it a little bit, right, with the AS, because you're really supposed to have, at least a 4-year degree
Yeah, I
before
gotcha.
you roll in. So she allowed me to come back as an engineer one, which is it's a career level, line of progression position with them, and that was the year after my internship. And so by that time, I just finished up with the AS, with you guys at Cabrillo, just gotten this bump to engineer one at Granite, and so I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay, right on.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
this is really paying off. Um, Good job there, and this was sort of a turning point for me. Of course, I was doing mechanical engineering at Cabrillo, but now I'm working in a civil engineering,
Right.
sort of role. Um, Very different, but not as different as you might think.
Yeah.
The concepts, and all of, I would say pretty much all of the most applicable coursework to any engineering field happens in the first 2 years. All the stuff that is going on at Cabrillo is the stuff that I use, on a daily basis, right? And still to this day. So that applied just really, really well to my work at Granite. However, um, I really liked working outside. I really liked working around these big equipments, building bridges. And I was kind of like, you know, moving towards, they have several different like divisions there at Granite. And so I was kind of moving into the structures division. So like big bridges, working down in Big Sur, big washouts up on Highway 9 and stuff like
Mm,
that. And just like these really, really large scale projects. And I really liked the scale of those projects compared to some of the stuff I'd seen on the mechanical engineering side, which
okay.
of course is highly technical and super fun in and of itself. But for me personally at the time, I was like, man, this is great. I'm running around in the dirt tractors. It's like every kid's dream, right? And then also, getting paid well for it, which was great. Um, and so I worked for a couple years there, and was just kind of, happy to be doing it. But I was always like, man, I gotta finish that degree, right? I had a 2-year degree, but I wanted the bachelor's degree, and that's when I ended up going to San Jose State. Well, I should say, I tried to go to San Jose State. I I got in the first time, but it was of course for mechanical engineering, and I said, well, I don't want to do mechanical engineering. I want to do civil, and that I will say for anybody listening to this, that is a decision that I would try to make if you're gonna switch. I would try to make that before you apply, because changing from one impacted major to another impacted major is difficult. Um,
Yeah. Do you remember what year that was?
oh,
Was it
it 20.
2015?
I think I,
No.
yeah, I think I grad. Yeah, yeah, I think it was right around then because I think I graduated in 2017.
Okay.
So that sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds
Okay.
good to me. Yeah. So anyway, I decided I was going to go into civil engineering. Right. I thought, oh, it'd be a breeze. I'll just change a few things on my paperwork. Absolutely not the case. And so
It's a little bit easier now. So what
good.
happens is you go in with your first semester taking the courses that would satisfy the mechanical major.
Sure.
But in junior year, there's still overlap between what civils and mechanicals take. So
Right.
you would still be in the mechanical program, but you're taking the courses that a mechanical or a civil. And then once you
Excellent.
have one successful semester, you automatically go into the new major.
Oh, I'm
So it's
glad
a
they.
little bit easier now.
Yeah. No, well, that's
Okay,
excellent that they figured that out, and that's still, I
great.
think my advice was stands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Try to
Right. Pick
get
the
that
right one at the beginning.
right. Try to get that. And to that point, one thing I would say is, I had a lot of experience from work, during this process, which made my decision making process pretty easy.
Yeah,
I mean, it was going to be engineering. I
right.
just hadn't quite nailed down the discipline. And I will say that, and I know you guys have awesome outreach to all kinds of companies and stuff. If you have the time, as a student, take any opportunity you can to get some experience in, you know, a role that is a mechanical engineering role, that is
Yeah,
a civil engineering role, right? Mechatronics, whatever it may be. Spend some time doing that because, uh, seeing folks who went straight to it, just out of high school and just became really disillusioned with, the
yeah,
job they, thought they were going to get versus the job that they
yeah,
actually ended up getting, right? And what the reality of that situation was, I saw it a lot in folks who
yeah,
I went, who went similar paths, just on a little more accelerated timeline.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the internships are key to get a feel for what it's like out there so you can make the appropriate um, choice on which field of engineering you want to go into.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, without a doubt, one of the most important things to do, and a community college, you know, I'm kind of spiraling on this, but I think it's important. Community college, in my opinion, is the way to go because everybody's situation is different. But if you can afford to slow it down, maybe not take a gap year or anything, because that does kind of slow your momentum down. But if you're planning on doing something like that and you kind of are interested in engineering, go to community college and pay a quarter, a sixth of whatever per unit cost it is to do it at a university or, you know, anywhere else like that, a 4-year institution, and figure it out on the cheap.
yeah,
Because it's literally worth its weight in gold. You're
yeah,
saving all this money and you're figuring it out, right?
yeah.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
thanks. So those are really good. Internships important, and the idea of slowing it down, paying less, getting good instruction, and working while you're going through to get experience is great. Very
yeah,
valuable.
super, super, super important
Yeah,
for me. And then I got lucky again, San Jose State, right? So we made it through. We made it through the switch. Right now, I'm in civil engineering, but I'm still working. Right, of course, I have this wonderful job at Granite, and I did not want to give that up. like I said, there's a really a pretty good line of progression in the engineer, and I'm saying engineer, and that's just the title. And as you move up from engineer one, two, and three, you take on more responsibility and your role shifts a little bit. So, as an engineer one, basically I was, doing, you know, process management stuff in the field, right? Every day running around with some like how to read plans, you know, uh, good experience on some of the other fabrication aspects of it, which just got lucky there. And then basically you're a glorified secretary, but it's it's fun because you are the liaison between the office engineers and the guys working in the field. So it can be scary to start out because it's like drinking from a fire hose. You're what some and in some cases you're just on barely the backside of your 20th birthday, right? um, and you're dealing with these guys who have been swinging a hammer for their entire life, right? And you're telling them, "What, you can put that there? I don't know." It's that classic meme. It's like, I don't know how to do your job, but my notebook says that this is supposed to go over here, right? So it can be intimidating, and it's great to get that out of the way early. And that's maybe a little more civil specific, heavy civil specific, but again, goes back to getting your boots dirty early.
Mm.
And then as you move into engineer two, right, you start to gravitate a little bit more towards a project management role, where you're spending about half the time in the office, half the time in the field. You're starting to get into estimating, stuff like that. So of course, with each one of those levels, you get a significant pay bump. So I'm here, in San Jose now, and I'm like, shoot, what am I going to do? Right, this is a 4-year institute. All the classes are during the day, right? Oh, man, I'm gonna have to quit my job. San Jose State's great because they offer a wonderful, wonderful night program.
Right.
And so what I did, and I think they still do that. I haven't looked, but
Yeah.
what I did was I transferred offices from Watsonville, Granite and Watsonville, to their Santa Clara yard, and I started working out of their Santa Clara yard. So show up to the yard 6:30, work a day, and then get off in time for the 6 o'clock start. And then classes, those classes are usually fewer. They met fewer times a week, but they were like 3 to 3.5 hour, 4 hour classes, right? So you'd end at 10 or whatever.
Mm.
Um, and the beauty about that, it was so awesome because the folks who teach those night classes are they're called adjunct professors, right? And they are the people who also are working all day in the field, right? That you're interested in. And then they come and teach a class, once or twice a week. And I, I didn't know that at the time, but it I got so lucky, just by necessity having to go at night, of getting my education from folks who were still in business, right? They were just in it every day and they'd come and teach the class. And I got such good advice from all of those guys. Kurt McMullen was the reason. He was the structural guy over there, and he was a working civil engineer, structural engineer, and he gave me some of the best advice that I've ever gotten. He said, just get your degree. It doesn't matter how you do
Mm.
it. Just get that piece of paper, because all that HR cares about is to see that you've had enough, get up and go to finish the degree, right? It doesn't matter if, I think I'm embarrassed to say this, but I think when I graduated, I had a 2.7 GPA. And let me tell you, I had probably, I kid you not, probably 15 job offers. We had job fairs, there, and I went to the last one just to see what's what. I actually went there with Granite, and I got 15 job offers, even with the GPA like that. So it really doesn't matter. It's all about attitude and just making it through. Now, of
Right.
course,
And your experience.
yeah, of course,
The
yeah,
experience is what got you. Yeah.
that's absolutely true. But really, a lot of these folks, and now, you know looking forward, 10, 12, whatever years, however many it's been, and been in on the other side of the chair having to hire people, really what you're looking for, any of these folks are looking for is, hey, is this somebody I can work with every day? Is
Mm,
this somebody who, I can have a conversation with? Is this somebody who has a good attitude? And so, going through and finishing up at San Jose State with these adjunct professors, that sort of just set me up for all the success that I've had, on the heels, of course, of Cabrillo, set me up so well for the real world, right? And I think there's a big disconnect more and more, especially some of these, highfalutin institutions, these highfalutin 4-year institutions where it's
yeah,
very academics heavy and not application heavy.
right,
San Jose State
right,
is not that. San
right.
Jose State is like, a working class institution, as
Yeah,
is Cabrillo. And I'm very proud to say that, I graduated from both of those programs. And I
yeah,
think anybody should be.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
back to it.
where are you working now?
Yeah, so so I finished at Granite,
Right.
let's say about 4 years ago now. And it was a great job. Um, but I was getting, again, there's only, you build a bridge only so many ways, right? And so I was like, man, you know what? I'm looking for something new, right? And my brother worked on a line crew at PG&E, and I guess this was a little further back than there. Anyway, my brother was on a line crew at PG&E. Said, "Why don't you come over?" And I went to work as a general construction engineer
Okay.
for PG&E, on a line crew. Did that for 2 years. Said absolutely not. It's
Okay.
you're never home. You're traveling. The money is great. So if anybody's interested in making a lot of money, you can go work for PG&E. Work is not that hard, and frankly, for me, it was kind of boring. And takes me to where I'm at now. I put my application in for a mechanical technician position at Embari and Moss Landing. Absolutely didn't think I was going to get it. Of course, my resume is like heavy civil and, PG&E line crew. What are these guys? The world class institute. What are these guys going to want with me? Right. And I guess they were down guys or something like that, but they bit, and I've been there for the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
And that has been uh, it's been the best job I've ever had,
Oh, wow.
and it's, I mean, it is just such a wonderful, wonderful job.
Okay,
Um,
so tell us what's so wonderful about it. Is the people, the work, and talk
sure,
about some projects you've worked on that you've loved.
sure. So, Ambari is unlike a lot of the jobs that are around here, but you might find some similarities in some startups and stuff like that. But the the people who you work with there, it's a mix of scientists, engineers, and I guess you would call them technicians or operations folks. And what's really neat about that is it's a if you've heard in, I guess, what is that, engineering 10, the different methods for, building a project. We talked about design build, right? If we're kind of, doing everything all mashed up and, at the same time, that's what it's like. A little more mechanical engineering, but you're working with the highest caliber folks in the world. And so you've got the project flow there is basically, we call them principal investigators, PIs. They're usually a PhD or occasionally, a PhD candidate or somebody who's been in the research sphere for a long time, usually 10 years or more. They come up with an idea. Hey, I want to measure, how uh, carbon dioxide levels in seawater are changing, right? And they have this sort of grandiose, mission that they want to accomplish, and then there's a staff of engineers, mechanical engineers, and they say, well, what is it that you want to do? And they say, well, we want to sample seawater at different depths for a year, right? So we want to deploy some sort of instrument that we have no idea how it even, looks in the ocean for a year, sampling water continuously, right? And they say, well, okay, engineers fiddle around and they come up with, some sort of mechanism, and then they come to us, right? And they say, well, how are we going to build this? Because unless have some sort of bifurcated career path, if you're a design engineer, you don't necessarily typically have a lot of experience in the manufacturing of things. And so Embari, uh, I say unlike any other place, because normally you would have each of these groups in separate places, right? At Embari, everybody's in the same pond, right? You're a 5 minute walk from the science building, and science building's a 10 minute walk from the manufacturing hub where I work. And so once they kind of start to formulate this idea, right, they come down to us in the shop, and it's a handful of guys and gals in there, and we have experience building stuff, and we get to be part of, basically it's a design review, at the start of every project, and we say, okay, engineers have sort of a rough idea of what they want to do, and we work with them to make sure that it's something that can be manufactured, and make sure that it's something that can survive in the ocean for a year, being in seawater for a year, right? So you might have like materials engineers, right? Um, as part of this, right? What kind of material do we want to make this stuff out of, right? We use a lot of titanium, right? 6Al4V, pretty common, uh, grade of titanium that we use versus like type, type 2 pure. Um, and so we're having all these conversations, right? This is like, every day. You're
Yeah.
getting to work with these people who are, way more knowledgeable than you, right? But of course they're relying on you for your own, bit of expertise. And the collaboration is just like unlike anything I've
Wow.
ever been a, even at Granite, right, where you're working with engineers and folks. There's all the walls, have been knocked down. There's a lot of times in industry, there's kind of an us versus them sort of feeling that
Yeah.
is unfortunate, but it's the reality of things. Oh, the engineers don't know what they're doing, they don't know, they're messing up my job, right? Not the case here. So it's
Okay.
completely cool. And then of course you get to build cool stuff all day, every day, and
Yeah.
you have access to some of the most advanced manufacturing,
Love it.
equipment um, around,
It
right?
sounds so amazing, Marin. I mean,
It's
Roman,
wonderful.
sorry.
It's no, it's wonderful.
People
It's
probably do
wonderful.
that a few
They
times.
do, they do, they do, they do. Yeah, all of my what you call my work shirts just have my last name on it too. So
Yeah.
people call me, it's kind of interchangeable, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta have
Um,
a first and last name that could be either.
right, but
Right.
yeah, I mean
It's so
it's
incredible.
it's pretty mind blowing. And then of course you're working, steps away from the beach, which is not bad either, and first commute. But yeah, I hope to be able to retire at this job, and that's
Wow.
another really cool thing. The average tenure for folks there just it's probably like 10 or 15 years. So people they come there and they stay, and that's a testament, I think, to how cool it is, right?
Yeah,
It's not just me saying that, as a starry-eyed young pup, but it's just it's pretty mind-blowing.
that's
Just
great.
the opportunity that I get, that's my work. I get to go every day and play around in basically a giant, shop, which is perfect. Um,
I'm
but
so glad that you are where you are now. You
yeah,
really have done a lot of different things working in engineering and seen a lot. And in the end, you could evaluate all the places you've been,
right,
and then you're here at Mbari and you're like, this is it. This is where I want
yeah.
to be.
And it really does. It really, all of this experience, it's not, I'm 35 years old now. which is not, I still consider myself a fairly young man, but
Yes.
I've been working since I was in my early teens,
Yeah.
and so I
Uh-oh, you're frozen. Hmm.
experience at Cabrillo, my experience at all these different jobs,
Yeah.
and
So Roman, you were
for me at
frozen for a
least,
little bit.
getting to see them.
You were
Sure.
frozen for a little bit, but
Okay. Okay.
so it sounds like what you were saying, like the last thing we were saying is that, you worked in a lot of different fields and now you end up at this place that you just totally love.
Yeah.
And it
So
sounds
it's
like
just
you are just confirming that, I might
I
guess.
was certainly, and I guess
Yeah.
the takeaway from that, right? If you guys haven't noticed already, I'm pretty long winded, but uh, the takeaway from that is, and it's so cliche, but don't quit, right?
Yeah.
That is the biggest takeaway because sometimes it might take 10 years, it
Yeah.
might take 15 years, right,
Yeah.
to get where you're going to go.
Yeah.
But
And be I think also like you applying for Embara, you were like, well, I'm probably not going to get it because my
right,
background's civil. And then you got it. And many people would have just said, no, I'm not even going to apply because I have a civil background.
right.
So not only don't quit, but just go for what you think you want and see what happens.
Yeah, you can't catch a fish in the water. That's the that's the biggest thing, and the worst that somebody's going to say, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, cool.
it's the
Yeah.
jobs like that are out there. They're all
Yeah.
over. You
It's
just
funny. I'm
got to go
looking at
find
all
them.
the questions and you've answered so many of the questions. I guess maybe a last question would be, how has your engineering degree impacted your quality of life?
Sure. It's very simple. An engineering degree, regardless of whatever discipline it is, gives you options. Um, if I was to be let go tomorrow, within a week, I could take my degree and go get a well-paying job, you know, anywhere in the state,
Yeah.
probably anywhere in the country, honestly, or even out of the country. And engineering is by far it's the best thing to do if you're looking at a college degree.
Mm.
Somebody might say computer science or coding or whatever that else is, but hey, that's part of engineering too. All our
Right.
mechanical engineers, they're writing stuff. I'm programming, all of the CNC, right? That's all G code, right? So
Right. Right.
we're doing all that stuff every day too. And that's, I guess, the one cool thing about engineering is there's so many different degrees of freedom within each discipline, not to mention just the whole
Right.
thing.
Yep.
You can really take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
And it's a highly respected degree.
Yes.
Which if you're doing it just for that, maybe that's not quite the right thing to be doing it for. But either way, it's going to serve you.
Yeah.
So you cannot go wrong with an engineering degree.
Yeah.
You really can't.
Mm.
Um, it's
Maybe we'll stop. I'm going to stop the recording now because I think
yeah,
it's a good time and I still
yeah,
want to talk to you.
sure.